this isn't just about menopause and perimenopause medicine. This is longevity medicine. This is medicine that focuses on health span. That's the direction we need to go.
Welcome to the Dutch Podcast, where we dive deep into the science of hormones, wellness, and personalized healthcare. I'm Dr. Jaclyn Smeaton, Chief Medical Officer at Dutch. Join us every Tuesday as we bring you expert insights, cutting-edge research, and practical tips to help you take control of your health from the inside out. Whether you're a healthcare professional or simply looking to optimize your own well-being, we've got you covered. The contents of this podcast are for educational and informational purposes only. This information is not to be interpreted or mistaken for medical advice. Consult your healthcare provider for medical advice, diagnosis, and treatment. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dutch Podcast. I'm so excited for you to be here. Today's guest is a real expert in something that many of us are working through right now, which is perimenopause. And really, I think perimenopause is kind of the last frontier in women's health. And thank goodness it's been getting more and more attention, more and more discussion, and more research to help us better understand what's happening to women during these really up to 10 years of time before their last period. Today's guest is someone who's really focused in on learning more about how to help women through this midlife transition. And I loved this episode. She's so down to earth, so easy to talk with, and has this real positive energy that she brings to the conversation, but really also focuses in on the challenges that are happening hormonally, but not just with our reproductive hormones, also with our adrenal and HPA axis function, and with just our metabolic health, and really just so much more that ties into what's happening to us as women during these years. My guest today is Dr. Mariza Snyder. And like I said, she's a leading advocate for women in midlife with over 17 years of experience as a clinician, an author, and a speaker, supporting women through that perimenopause transition. She hosts the top-rated Energize with Dr. Mariza podcast with more than 13 million downloads and reaches a global audience of over 400,000 followers. And I can tell why. She offers practical science-backed guidance on hormones, on metabolism, and really on longevity and overall vitality. She authored the book, The Perimenopause Revolution, which was released last year, and also empowers women to approach perimenopause with confidence, resilience, and clarity. It's a really great conversation. I know you're going to jump right in. It's going to fly right by. Let's go ahead and get started. So, Dr. Mariza, I'm so grateful that you're here with me today to talk about something that we talk about all the time, and thankfully more and more women are talking about, which is perimenopause.
Yes.
So I'm really glad you're here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to expand the conversation, especially for clinicians, because many of us have women in this demographic, and I know that each of us want to support our patients in a really beautiful way that moves the needle for them.
Right. Well, I want to start because your book, The Perimenopause Revolution, I just love the energy behind that. You know, that It's not just a transition, it's a complete revolution. You have to tell us the backstory. Why are you so interested in perimenopause? Why do you encourage women to think about this as a revolution?
You know, like so many women, I found myself blindsided by perimenopause at 43 years old. Despite being a women's hormone expert with over 16 years of clinical experience, taking care of women in midlife specifically, I felt lost. My energy had tanked, my weight was piling on, my brain fog became so severe, I would just lose my train of thought mid-sentence. And there are days where I'm still like, am I going to remember what the research was, what I'm saying? And I just felt like a shell of my former self. I didn't recognize myself anymore. And I was like, this is what my patients have been telling me for many, many years. And I was a new mom at the time, navigating both postpartum and perimenopause. And I believe that's why I felt so blindsided by it. You know, and I remember going down countless rabbit holes, running Dutch testing, running lab testing, trying to understand why what I had been doing stopped working for me. And I struggled so much to show up for the people that mattered most to me and for the things that mattered most to me. And in that journey of not only finally identifying that it was perimenopause, indeed, that I went down, you know, how can we support women? Like I went into the research, I was like, okay, if this is where women are landing in this transition, especially, you know, women that are having children at later ages, like how do we get women educated so that they know their body, that they can advocate for themselves and they can get the solutions and the tools that they deserve? And more importantly, I think from the standpoint as a clinician, like how do we support clinicians in understanding the signs, knowing the signs, because often perimenopause is a diagnosis based on symptoms, not so much based on labs, because perimenopause is very much a moving target.
There's a couple things I want to dissect with what you said. First is that last piece is like knowing what the signs are, because there's a lot of the problem is they're very fuzzy, right? It's like a very fuzzy presentation. And if you're not looking for it or you're not paying attention to it, it can feel surprising that it's, perimenopause, and it can feel concerning with the things that are going on. But when we think about like average age of menopause being 52, and we know perimenopause can be up to 8 years, around that.
Give or take. Yeah,
Give
4
or
to 10
take
plus.
4 to
Yeah,
10 plus. And again, that's average age of menopause. Your
average. Yeah.
like your last menstrual period being at 51, so menopause at 52. I mean, that would put that for a lot of women, perimenopause is starting in the early 40s, and I think a lot of women are blindsided. They're completely blindsided.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And
I
for
think
some, I
yeah,
was going to say, and for some, even clinician colleagues of mine, and obviously patients, many of them went into menopause at 49, 47, 48. And then
right.
we reverse engineer that. We're talking late 30s
Right.
for
And
women.
a lot of providers that aren't in this field, let's say you see your GP, they're going to say, "Nah, you're only 38. There's no way this could be perimenopause."
Yeah,
Because it's
unless
so
it's late peri, there's no
right.
way you're in it. You're not having crime scene periods, no hot flashes and night sweats yet, no severe anxiety and sleep problems. You just have low stress tolerance and brain fog. Like it can't be
Right.
perimenopause. And yeah, I mean, that's why I think this conversation is so important, because what we used to think perimenopause was late perimenopause. 47 years old is what the CDC had said for many, many years. And it's because we were basing perimenopause on menstrual cycle symptoms and changes, not the neuroendocrine transition that it often is.
Right. And I mean, that is still the standard of care. There was like a paper published this year that started to challenge that dogma and look at other symptoms beyond just menstrual irregularity,
I know.
that should be
Gosh
defining
forbid
that.
these hormones affect more than just our menstrual cycle.
I know, shocking, right? I mean, they're
Shocking.
just a part. They just have receptors in every single cell in the body. The other thing that you brought up was women who have children later in life, which of course is a trend. The only age group where women are having more babies than they were 10 years ago is women over 35. Every other age group, pregnancy rates have come
Are
down.
dropping. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting, because what that means is not that fertility rates are higher in that age group, but that we're seeing a shift behaviorally in women waiting until later in life. And if you're listening and you're a working woman, you're probably not surprised by that, or you pursued an education. There's a cultural trend there. But I mean, absolutely, pregnancy takes a big toll. And actually, now that you mention it, a lot of the symptoms that women experience postpartum echo that of perimenopause. So that would be a really tough untangle.
Yeah, it isn't. I found it to be a pretty tough untangle for myself. I was 2 years postpartum when my cycle came back online. Really, it was about close to 2 years. I was still breastfeeding because I knew that I was a one and done mom. So I was gonna have one baby, and he was gonna have the world, like everything I could give, and including breastfeeding until he was 2.5 years old. And it was right after he turned 2 that I felt pretty spectacular. And I think that's why it felt so destabilizing. I was like, okay, mama's
We're
getting her
through it.
groove back. I'm starting to feel like myself. I got energy. I'm sleeping again. Like, oh, I felt like I had turned this big corner. I was working out a bit harder. I was building that muscle. One of my dearest friends is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and I was working with her personal trainer locally. And I was doing all the things, and if anything, I was doubling down on the longevity habits, because I was stepping. I knew perimenopause was coming. I knew when my mom went into perimenopause. I knew when she went into menopause. I could do the math. Like I remember thinking, I was like, I think maybe I have some reproductive longevity. Maybe my ovaries have a little bit more juice in them. And then it was like I fell off this proverbial cliff. And I went from feeling amazing. If you had asked me a month prior if this was perimenopause, I mean, I didn't have symptoms. And it was such a shift that I thought it was my thyroid. I thought it was so many other things. I thought it was cortisol. I thought it was burnout. I ran my diurnal cortisol on the Dutch testing many times. And no matter what I've done, and I've done a lot of things to support my adrenals and my hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, my cortisol curve is not the most spectacular curve that you've ever seen. I have had a lot of trauma. My ACEs score is I think a 6 or 7. And so I just have had a lot of, my body has not always felt safe. And so those are the things that I'm like, oh, it must be this. It must be maybe my cortisol levels have really tanked after postpartum. Maybe my thyroid, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Like, it was easy to go and search out the things that I knew have been an issue for me in the past. And could those be exacerbated in perimenopause? Absolutely. For me, it was very much a yes and. It was both. Yes, I looked at the Dutch test. I ran my thyroid labs. Those definitely shifted a bit, but not to the extent of a lot of the other symptoms I was struggling with, which was a decline in progesterone as well, and other areas.
Well, I love that you actually started with the cortisol assessment, because that's one thing that I think is so valuable about Dutch testing in women with perimenopause, which this is an area that actually, when we surveyed our customers, why are you using the Dutch test? It wasn't like HRT. It was perimenopause was the number one reason that people ordered Dutch tests out of our customers. So this is a huge application. And I do love that the HPA axis assessment and your adrenal assessment and cortisol is part of that reproductive hormone picture all in one, because there is so much overlap in that symptomatology, number one. So it helps you see, well, is this cortisol dysregulation? Is this my HPA axis, or are my reproductive hormones changing? That's the first thing. And the second is that if it is, or if it's not, you need to prepare your stress systems for perimenopause, because we know that women who have disrupted cortisol have a worse experience with perimenopause and menopause. So it's like step one is part of that. And so I love that you looked at that first.
Yes.
I love that you assessed that. And absolutely, when I'm thinking about this from a practitioner point of view, that's one of the first things that I want to look at and address and fix, because it will make everything else easier. Because that kind of brings me to like what perimenopause is, which it's interesting because there's no like estrogen level where we know, oh, hot flashes kick in when your estrogen hits X. That data doesn't exist. It's different for every woman.
It's different. Yeah. I mean, it's all, hormone receptivity. I mean, there's so many variables here. How resilient, well, what's your blood sugar levels? What are your blood sugar levels before going to bed at night? Are those leading to the night sweats, hot flashes in the evening? There's a couple other variables. What's your stress look like? Those can be triggers for it. So I think there's just, it's not the one thing, right? It's just because, we have estrogen declining, particularly in the late perimenopausal phase for most women, although it can be early for others. It just really depends on where they're at. What other kind of hormone situations are playing out, and what are the life stressors and the lifestyle habits that are also playing into. And a lot of women think they never went into menopause or never went into perimenopause because they just didn't have a night sweat or hot flash. And so I love that we are really expanding the definition of what perimenopause is.
Absolutely. I mean, I really think that when we think about menopause care, like in our lifetimes, we're going to see hormone therapy prescribed as primary prevention. Like, I think the data is moving that way.
Oh,
but there's a lot of data coming out on menopause, that perimenopause is still very tricky to understand. So maybe just for listeners who, if this is the first time you're listening to the Dutch podcast, we talk about perimenopause a lot, but help us, Dr. Mariza, understand what is happening hormonally during perimenopause.
Yeah, I love this question. And this is a question I get all the time. We reverse engineered a little bit of menopause, the average age 51, 52. Now we see that most women, Dr. Jaclyn, you and I think most women, at least for me in my experience, 42, 43, that's usually when they come to me and they're like, something isn't right. I can't keep excusing these symptoms anymore as stress, or as I'm overworked, or I've got too many demands. I'm at my capacity. Something isn't right. I don't feel like myself anymore. And usually, especially when I'm looking at Dutch testing, but also, again, perimenopause is a clinical diagnosis, often of symptoms, cycle changes, and I would say age. Those are the three criteria. Labs can help us, but I can tell you, even for myself, I kept picking great days to run my labs, and everything looked really good. Cortisol and thyroid, not so much, but progesterone and estrogen, they looked pretty stellar on paper. I didn't feel stellar in my real life. But what we know is that as the ovaries are beginning to decline in terms of their egg capacity, so we only have so many eggs in the bank, and usually that's late reproductive age is anywhere after the age of 35, give or take. Again, every woman's a little bit different, but we know we only have so many eggs left at a certain point. And as a response with ovulation, and ovulation I think is the main event. I personally think that ovulation is everything, deeply embedded in our mitochondrial function, our energy capacity. I think it's all interconnected. And as our ovaries are kind of receiving that signal that we are winding down, we start to have anovulatory cycles. Now, not a lot in that late reproductive stage, but definitely there's some happening. And we know that progesterone in that luteal phase of the cycle is that progestation hormone, and that's going to start to subtly decline. And for some women, we're seeing this earlier and earlier due to stress factors around stress and maybe metabolic dysfunction. There's a lot of different reasons that we are seeing this play out. And so I would say that progesterone is often the first hormone to begin to decline. Symptoms of perimenopause as a result can be cyclical. You may be fine in the follicular phase of your cycle, but in the luteal phase of your cycle, you're noticing cycle changes, duration changes, maybe even the way that your period is presenting the beginning of your cycle. PMS symptoms may be exacerbated or elongated. And so that's usually what I tell women is really be paying attention to your menstrual cycle. What is going on? It is your monthly report card. It can tell us so much about what is happening even in early perimenopause. And so as these hormones begin to decline, and again, it's in an erratic fashion, it's not linear. Perimenopause never just announces itself one day. And for some women, it's very gradual. For other women, it's very abrupt. It just really depends. But we do know that for most of us, progesterone is going to be the hormone that begins to decline. And I'll see this on Dutch testing. I will see this in serum lab testing, where we will start to see progesterone decline. Estrogen still robust, even in the luteal phase. If anything, I'll see more of an estrogen dominance presentation, where women are noticing fibrocystic breast, tender, heavy breast, heavier bleeding, heavier PMS symptoms, more migraines, more bloating, that type of presentation. And sure enough, I will see that going down that 16 pathway. Is where we see more proliferative estrogen and estrone showing up to the table. And what I think about with perimenopause, as these hormones are interacting with receptor sites all over the body, but predominantly with the brain. I think about progesterone being a neurosteroid hormone, significant neurosteroid hormone. So we will notice low stress tolerance. We'll notice sleep issues. We'll notice more irritability, more women not feeling like themselves anymore. Again, estrogen still very much present, if not more of an estrogenic state, where we're not clearing it in terms of estrogen metabolism, but there's no buffer in terms of progesterone able to support the process of feeling more calm and relaxed in that part of our cycle.
Yeah, I mean, one of the phrases that you've used before that I love is hormone chaos.
Yes.
And it's such an appropriate term, because I think we know as women go through late reproductive phase into perimenopause and menopause, there's a very predictable decline in progesterone. But then you have, well, maybe not so predictable because it changes from woman to woman, but it's going to steadily decline. You might have occasional ovulatory cycles where you get some progesterone, but overall,
a little boost.
Yeah, even those cycles, it's less than it used to be.
Yeah.
But estradiol can really be all over the place. And I think that's one thing that is, it's like the hallmark is chaos. I love that you use that word, hormone chaos. And you talk about that more than hormone deficiency or hormone levels, because it seems like that chaos is a critical piece of the puzzle.
I believe that hormone chaos is real because it's the lived experience of so many women in their late 30s and 40s, right? It's that sense of who am I right now? Like, why don't I feel like myself anymore? Why am I crying at a commercial or yelling at my partner over something so small and trivial, right? That low stress tolerance can really mess with us. And cortisol is deregulating too, right? It's not just the reproductive hormones that are shifting and changing without permission. We see these other hormones also playing a role. And hormone chaos often means, like you just said, estrogen might be spiking too early in our cycle. cycle. It might be spiking in the luteal phase. We may not be clearing it as appropriately as we used to. Progesterone is missing in action. And it's just, it feels like a roller coaster ride. And I think the reason why I describe it as chaos is for women, it feels like chaos. It feels like a moving target. What we are used to expecting with rhythmic hormones that show up the way that they're supposed to show up throughout the month, every single month, all of a sudden they're not showing up the way that they used to. And so this amplifies PMS. This amplifies insomnia, anxiety, heavy periods. This amplifies migraines, brain fog, low mental energy. And that perfect storm of low resilience, man, women, no wonder they're really looking for answers and they just don't feel like themselves anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a hallmark. It's like always changing. It's kind of unpredictable and certainly really frustrating. I think when I think about Dutch testing, one thing I love about it is that it can represent a longer period of time than serum testing, which is kind of more of like a snapshot, a 1 second. Like when you check serum levels of hormone, you're checking them in that second. And you're also just checking what's available to the cells. When you do Dutch testing, you are at least doing 1 day because you're doing 4 points in a day. And you're looking not just at what's available to the body, which is what the blood looks at, but how it's used by the tissues. And you've talked about a couple of metabolites. And then we also have the cycle map, which is the full cycle long. And I love looking at that for perimenopause. In fact, I'm going to share some data. I just got permission from one of the docs on our team, where every year she does Dutch testing and we have a full cycle map. She's going through perimenopause. And it's so funny because it's like textbook. The first one she has looks perfect. The second one, progesterone's a bit lower. The next year, a little lower. Estrogen's higher. And then eventually now she's flatlined. And it's just really cool to see that year over year transition. I can't wait to put that data out and share it because I think it's a great lesson learned. But can you share a little bit more about the challenges? Because I think most women have access to serum labs first, at least.
I know. Yeah.
Why are docs looking at that? Like, what's missing when you're doing just that single time point? Why is that not great for perimenopausal women?
Yeah, I want to answer that first question, which is why are we looking at serum testing? Or why, let's be honest, most doctors are not going to test serum labs at all, not hormones. They may be willing to run a full metabolic panel, a full lipid panel, highly sensitive CRP. You may be able to convince them to run a fasting insulin before you can convince them to run estradiol, progesterone, and a total testosterone panel. And, and thank goodness I'll get labs from patients that they'll just give to me and I'll look at a lot of those other markers and I can see perimenopause in the inflammation and in the lipids and in the fasting insulin as well. But if we're looking at symptom management, which is what conventional medicine is looking at. A lot of us are thinking about hormone replacement therapy in terms of symptom management and not optimization. We don't need labs to determine if a woman needs hormone. At least we don't think we need labs to determine if a woman needs hormones or not. And that's really what the situation is. Accessibility is always a concern for me. If I have a patient who really cannot afford anything outside of serum testing that's done through insurance, that's the direction we're going to go. And I'm going to take a very thorough health history and really understand what's going on with her and can determine whether HRT or whatever other solutions and strategies and tools we can implement without having, as much, I want the mapping on everybody. Why wouldn't I? And women in perimenopause or late reproductive years at the very least, to get a timeline of what is going on, not just throughout the month, but what if we were doing that every 6 months, or even at least every year? Like what the level of data we gather from that, it's game changing in terms of how we shape not only our clinical assessment, but also the solutions that we're offering women. Instead of just saying, hey, here's a patch right here, here's 100 milligrams of oral micronized progesterone, be on your way. What I love about Dutch testing is it isn't just a snapshot, right? We're looking at patterns and we're looking at how the body is using these hormones, how we are metabolizing these hormones. It gives us so much more insight. How are these hormones interacting with one another? Where that allows us to say, okay, this supplement actually isn't necessary at this time. Although if we had just ran a serum lab, that would be the thing we would give. And so if women can't afford it, if they're working with a functional doctor, it's amazing to me how often I find traditional OBs will boo-hoo the Dutch test because they just don't understand the level of data that they're receiving in shaping the recommendations.
Yeah.
And so I personally love the patterning. It tells me so much more about a patient. It opens up the door for so many gaps that I'm losing just from just having a health history or only some simple serum lab testing that I may have just caught on a good day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there is a lot of misinformation around Dutch testing in the conventional space. It's unfortunate because I think it makes so people won't even open their eyes to it. But really, we use LCMS, which is like better than serum immunoassay when it comes to accuracy, measuring at low levels. You can do LCMS in serum, but a lot of providers don't even know that. And certainly, I think just the understanding of what the differences are. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of women miss out or get bad recommendations from their provider in regards to that.
Absolutely. We're talking cookie cutter recommendations that
Right.
often won't move the needle. And if I give you an estrogen patch and you can't clear it because you have poor estrogen metabolism, it's not necessarily going to help you mitigate those symptoms. If anything, it's going to drive more symptoms in the other direction.
Yeah, and I think it's just different paradigms, right? I mean, you could say this is a microcosm or a small single example of the differences in how conventionally trained providers talk about every condition compared to functional medicine providers, which is more information, personalization, targeted approach with an intent when it comes to disease states to actually cure, not just to be put on the right medication for a lifetime. And with menopause, I think about it where you'd mentioned there's this kind of prehistoric idea that menopause is just managing hot flashes, right? And so why would you need to test? Because women can tell you, do you still have hot flashes? Yes, bring the dose up. No, okay, you're at a good dose. If that's the window that you look at menopause through or the lens you look at it, why would you test? But I think now what we're seeing is, and I'm seeing this shift even in the conventional space, we're looking beyond that. We're looking at cognitive health maintenance. We're looking at cardiovascular protection. Obviously, bone health is an FDA approved reason for MHT. So I think now that we're expanding our look for menopause, we're starting to look at, well, maybe we do need to be thinking about measuring. And then we look back at perimenopause. That's going to be the last undiscovered territory, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so grateful because women are demanding different. They're demanding better. They're advocating harder. They're saying, listen, I'm not struggling with hot flashes or night sweats. I don't have osteopenia yet, but I cannot function at work. I'm struggling through presentations. I'm snapping at my kids. The majority of women who come into my practice to look at labs, very similar to what we're seeing with Dutch providers, is that they're struggling with rage. Mm-hmm. They're struggling with a level of low stress tolerance that is shifting everything. And if we're not addressing the cognitive piece, if we're not addressing women literally not feeling like themselves, and usually that's always mental and emotional, it's not because their shoulder hurts, then we're just not doing it. We're not doing our job.
Yeah, and it's a really serious concern. I mean, women, you're right. That rage is not an overstatement. You're not being dramatic. I mean, women really feel very much on edge, and knowing these things that are triggering me are not things that would normally rock the boat. Like you said, they know it's not them.
Yeah, I mean, I've had moments where I've been in the car and I'm like, I don't even know who I am right now. Like, this isn't me.
Right.
Like, and I'm like, I'm not, and I get women, I'm like, one, family and colleagues aren't willing to tolerate it, and you're not willing to tolerate it yourself. Like, and women deserve to feel deeply supported on an emotional and mental level. We obviously know that cognitive changes are happening. We feel that with master CEOs such as Esther Dial at play here. And women deserve, I always say, the best of things, not the least of things. And so we have to be looking at cardiovascular health. We have to be looking at the mental and emotional aspect of things. We need to be looking at patterns, and we need a timeline of what's happening for women to support them thoroughly.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll be right back with more. If you're already running Dutch tests in your practice or thinking about it, there's never been a better time to become an official Dutch provider. Why? Because we go beyond lab testing. Our provider community gets exclusive access to clinical education, in-depth report interpretation training, monthly case reviews, and one-on-one clinical support. Whether you're just getting started or looking to sharpen your functional hormone expertise, we give you the tools to grow. Join thousands of providers already making a difference. Visit DutchTest.com today. Welcome back to the Dutch Podcast.
I just as a little takeaway and note, there's definitely, I've experienced that too, which I never had PMS ever throughout my cycles. I've had like very easy menstrual cycles, but there have been times where I'm like ready to make a major life decision. And I think, just wait 3 days.
Yeah,
if I still feel this way in 3 days, I'll think about it some more.
Exactly. Wait till that estradiol begins to bump on,
That's right.
Like, let
Yep.
me just
And then
get to
you're,
day 5. Although I will say now that I'm 46 now, like that estradiol early rise isn't rising the way that we start to notice. I jokingly talk about how everyone loves day 11, day 12
the
us.
best.
And then, but you get into late perimenopause and that estradiol peak isn't peaking the way that it used to. And so we start to feel these shifts and changes. And I think the more that we get to look at, Dutch mapping across the cycle, or we're at least tracking our cycle, like we can see these changes over time and they don't feel like we're being blindsided by them as much as we're like, okay, now these are the tools I have to support me when on a month where I really, I feel like my hormones did not show up the way that they normally used to.
Right. Now, you've talked about metabolic health a little bit here and there. It's the time that we've chatted so far. But I want to talk about this head on because this is another big area that women would come into my practice with. And you have women who are like fitness instructors. They've followed nutrition. They're really focused on their health. And then in perimenopause, things start to shift and the strategies that have worked for their entire life for decades stop working, and they put on that, middle of the belly weight, or, they are just starting to see changes. I want to talk a little bit about that because I feel like women, we're still getting pressure like it's some kind of willpower issue. How do you reframe this conversation when it comes to the way stress hormones and insulin resistance and reproductive hormones affect weight for women?
Yeah, I mean, this is where women get gaslit the most, right? And I find that we're also, in a way, we can be gaslighting ourselves too.
We can do it ourselves,
Like,
yeah.
why isn't this working anymore? We're often told we're just not trying hard enough. It's not enough willpower. It's not enough discipline. When in reality, we know that the physiology is changing, right? We know that progesterone, estrogen, cortisol, insulin, they're all shifting. And particularly insulin is on the rise. Cortisol is deregulating, leading to that insulin resistance. But we know estrogen in particular is driving insulin sensitivity. And so as it becomes erratic, not even declining yet, we start to see these spikes in insulin resistance. Like we just start to see more blood sugar variability, body composition changes, and even testosterone isn't showing up the way that it used to. So all of this hormonal chaos, as we were talking about earlier, is the perfect storm for fat storage, especially around the belly area. It's the perfect storm for more cravings. It's the perfect storm for a little bit of muscle loss, not having the same motivation and confidence to get in the gym the way that you used to. And we have to reframe midlife weight gain as a hormonal issue, and that our bodies are going through a major shift and change, but that there are things that we can do to support our blood sugar, to create more insulin sensitivity, to protect our bone and muscle. And that's the conversation we need to be having with women more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I love you mentioned Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and I love her work, and I love following her because I love the focus on muscle building for women. I think that shift in conversation is a really healthy shift that's been needed for so long.
Yeah, I think physical activity, movement, blood sugar regulation. I think about lifestyle medicine being mitochondrial medicine. And that at the root of of almost everything is, as hormones begin to shift, we start to see mitochondrial function shift and not in the positive direction. So what can we do? What are the levers that we can pull to optimize cellular energy and mitochondrial capacity? Building muscle is one of those levers, but moving after meals is a big lever. Not eating after 7 o'clock in the evening or 3 hours before going to bed is a lever. I just did a call with a big group of women about alcohol swaps and late night eating swaps.
What kind of tips did you give them?
Yeah, so we talked about the late night eating swaps. One, recognizing the trigger. What's the unmet need? Is it stress? Is it boredom? Is it we have a protein gap going on? And so I talked about making, really yummy adaptogenic magnesium drinks, like with almond milk, unsweetened almond milk, a little bit of cacao, again, blood sugar friendly, but it's yummy and smooth. Maybe it has a little bit of protein in it so that we don't bust our blood sugar, but we kind of quell that craving, and we send safety signals to the brain and the body that we're safe. Right, so we're not messing with our sleep. I'm big. I did a big episode just recently on the show. It went live today on the impact of alcohol on hormones, metabolic health, blood sugar, and sleep, heart rate variability, resting heart rate, and how alcohol at dinner or after dinner is a no-go for women, particularly in perimenopause. And I talked about like making little magnesium sleepy drinks, making a sparkler. I interviewed somebody who has a really beautiful book called Everyday Elixirs, and it has all these beautiful sleepy day mocktails that feel like like a little aperitif or something like that, or digestif, but doesn't have any alcohol in it. So how can we sub it out, still feel sparkly, still feel good, maybe add a little bit of magnesium powder in it or an adaptogen in there, so we get the wind down without completely destroying our sleep, blood sugar, and our heart rate variability.
I love those suggestions. And this is such a great time for that episode because so many people are in dry January, their New Year's resolution time, and everyone is working to try to find some alternatives. But
thought about dry January, but they didn't implement. And you still have
exactly.
Yeah.
You still have February. You have the rest of your life. You don't, and I think it's not about rule making, but I do think
giving yourself a
perimenopause.
break. And women ask me, what if you're not willing to give it up completely? And I was like, well, let's talk about, well, one, how can we sub in for some mocktails? But also, if you don't want to wreck your sleep, you don't want to wreck your blood sugar and create more insulin resistance before bed or during your sleep. What if it's champagne at breakfast, like on the weekends? It's a champagne brunch, or it's a glass of wine at lunch. That's what the Italians do. They have more of their wine at lunchtime than they do at dinner time. And I was like, so that way you have a major buffer. You have an 8-hour buffer before bed. You've metabolized that alcohol. So these are just some of the strategies. I'm like, okay, how do I meet women where they're at?
Totally.
Alcohol is a no-go for me. I can't even look at a champagne glass without feeling like garbage the next day. And so finding, how do we make these little steps in the right direction? Because we know the data is clear. Alcohol is doing women, particularly in perimenopause, no favors.
Yeah. There's a lot of great like cordials that are sold now too we have one at home that's like strawberry basil that it's basically like a simple syrup. You could probably buy them sugar-free as well, but you can mix it with seltzer water, super easy. I love your ideas of some of the adaptogen drinks or even a cup of tea at night, like an herbal tea.
Holy
There's
basil
like
tea.
so many.
Yeah, you could make a little, it could be a turmeric, a golden turmeric tea, like with almond milk. It could be a cacao drink that's sugar-free. I am a big fan of mocktails and drinks, adaptogenic drinks, or fun, beautiful drinks that are blood sugar friendly.
I love that.
As you know, in perimenopause, we are just becoming a bit more insulin resistant, and many women, when they're being diagnosed with prediabetes, is in this window of vulnerability. And so I want to, you go to the restaurant, there's more mocktails popping up here and there, but we're talking about 15 grams of sugar in these drinks.
Yeah.
This is what I do. I have a Stanley. As a mom, I always have my son with me, and so no one's questioning my Stanley water bottle, And so I'll make a mocktail that's blood sugar friendly. I put it in my Stanley, and I take it to the fancy restaurant. They probably don't love the fact that I have a Stanley. They're not taking it away from me. But if I want something beautiful and sparkly, I'll make it before I leave the house and take it with me.
That's great. Yeah, I also at home love Spindrifts. Like they're just like a seltzer water, but it has a little more juice. It tastes great. And we will dehydrate slices of like orange or lemon or drop some pomegranate seeds in the cup, something that makes it fun. And then I'm really big on getting yourself some glasses that you absolutely love. Like go to Anthropologie, find something really beautiful, and then like enjoy those drinks. Because it's really more the ritual than the content. I find the same thing. So
exactly, and we get to enjoy the ritual. We get to have the ritual. I made my son and I last night. I'm basically blood orange, mixed drinks, beautiful mocktails. It was blood orange, a little bit of kombucha, so that for the probiotic benefit, again, not too much. I had blood oranges that I put on the side, sparkling water, and I think I did some Meyer lemon, and those were our drinks. I also have these little like vitamin C. It's basically tart cherry and beet juice and carrot juice. Like one of those little immunity shots.
Yeah, there's
I
great
just add a little bit
options.
of that to both of our drinks, and we have these beautiful bright red, pinkish but it has lots of vitamin C in it, lots of yummy, sparkly energy, and it's just so fun to drink. So those, I'll make those a couple times a week.
I love that. And it's the ritual of it. It's having something special. And I bet you, if you haven't tried at least going damp, if not dry, you'd probably gonna like it more than you think.
Oh, I always just give it 7 days, give it 10 days, see how you do. See what if you're wearing an Oura ring or a Whoop strap or even a Garmin, see what happens on that.
Yes, absolutely. Can we talk a little bit more about stress and sleep as well?
Yes,
Because it's
please.
another area where things really shift in perimenopause. Can you walk us through how, stress and chronic sleep deprivation or just that poor, less quality sleep end up kind of shifting metabolism and shifting our hormones, during perimenopause?
I mean, I feel like you just listed out the perfect storm, the perfect cascade.
Only because I've lived it.
I was like, and then it's rotor rooter, right?
It is like a tornado.
I mean, we think about stress being that ultimate survival hormone, and thank goodness for cortisol.
Right.
Thank goodness for helping us to get us awake and up in the morning, that cortisol awakening response, and how important it is for helping to regulate our blood sugar and our immune system, to support our gut microbiome. But obviously, there's not very much about this modern day world, particularly women in perimenopause, of this sandwich generation that lends to optimized hormones. And when you are chasing demands, like I'm a single mom all week this week, my husband's out of town for a week, and so I'm taking to school, picking up, like it is a one-woman show here in the house, and there are demands everywhere coming at me, and if we're not careful, like those demands start to pile up. You find yourself saying things like, oh my God, I got to run. I'm rushing here, there, everywhere. We just struggle with rushing women syndrome. Well, we know, you can see it on the Dutch tests, you can see on the diurnal cortisol testing, that cortisol will begin to spill over into the evening time. Melatonin, I mean, she's already disappearing. She's not showing up at the party anymore. Just as precipitous as progesterone is declining, we are going to see melatonin decline as well. And cortisol is going to keep rising into the evening. That has a profound impact on our sleep, especially if our circadian rhythm is not optimized. We're not getting that morning sunlight. We're not really respecting and honoring the sacred act of our sleep routine. And we're just kind of spiraling into the evening. Progesterone not helping to buffer that as well. You can imagine it's hard to get to sleep. We're wired and tired. You'll see that. I've had a reverse cortisol curve for years. I know exactly what it looks like. I know what it feels like. And there's nothing more like that moment when a woman, I cannot tell you how many times I've showed the cortisol curve to a patient, and we see the wired and tired on the graph. We see the reversal of that cortisol curve. We're not flatlined. We're not there yet, but we can just see, no wonder she can't get to sleep, or why she's waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and can't get back to bed, and she's just doom scrolling. That wears on us. That is erosion. There's a quote I wanted to just share really quickly from the Journal of Hormones back in 2009. And I just have it in my note real quick, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
For it. But basically, it's that chronic stress that is eroding us. Just here it is. So chronic stress can lead to overeating, co-elevation of cortisol and insulin, obviously, the suppression of certain anabolic hormones. We'll see this across the board as well. This state of metabolic stress in turn promotes abdominal visceral fat. It leads to oxidative stress and inflammation. It messes with our neurochemistry. Both the direct stress response and the accumulation of visceral fat can promote a milieu of more systemic inflammation and more oxidative stress. I mean, at its core, the constant activation of the stress response system erodes resilience, depletes our metabolic reserve, because it takes so much energy to be in survival mode. And many of us are operating in that mode because we don't feel like we have any other option.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's important for women to understand how to identify when that's happening too, because it can be, well, it is, like you said, it's like that wash cycle. It's like rinse and repeat. Once you get into it, it can be hard to get out of it. Are there tools that you utilize? Like, do you teach women about heart rate variability, or do you what are the tools that you utilize? Or is it more testing, like Dutch testing, that you're helping women say, like, see, look, there is a problem. Let's work on fixing that. Because I think it's easy to deny it, because it's like, oh no, yeah. I work a full-time job. Maybe I have a side gig. I take care of the kids. I'm running them after school, volunteering for PTO or whatever it is. You have a lot of balls in the air, but you're like, yeah, I got this. That's fine. It's all good. It can be a syndrome of that resilience that, as it starts to crumble, it can be really challenging. But a lot of women, I feel like, don't even perceive the amount of stress that they're under.
I mean, that's why stress is so insidious. It looks like you are winning. It looks like your slight edge. It looks like you are the indispensable person in your family. That's what it looks like. And for women, as you said, there's no other option. Like I just have to keep going, so what do we do? What do we do if we don't notice the triggers? What if we do if we're constantly chasing the fire alarm, right? And we don't even know it. We're just running from a meeting into picking up kids from school, making dinner, getting, just all the milieu of all the things that are happening in life. I would say that before we notice the trigger, and I will tell you, your body will tell you well before your thoughts will tell you. The tightening of the shoulders, the rapid way that you're responding, the way that you are quickly making decisions, like that. Those will be the signs to know, like, oh, I'm in a stress response mode. But so often that is just baseline. So it really is hard to notice. I know, because I've lived this baseline for a long time. Yeah.
Well, and the way that you worded it before, it makes me think of kind of like boss babe culture, right? Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
No, I'm well aware.
Yeah. Okay. So the way that you describe it, like that you're indispensable to your family, this is what it feels like. Like, to me, I'm like, well, that kind of feels good. I bet a lot of women feel positive towards that type of life because of the positive impact they're having. But you're right. It's like your body starts to send signals, and sometimes they're a whisper at first if you're lucky, but if you don't listen, they get louder and louder and louder until you're incapacitated.
Yeah. I mean, how often have you looked at the Dutch labs and their cortisol levels are flatlined?
Yeah, definitely.
We're past a point of no return. Not a point of no return, but we're talking about a lot of repair. And not just repair in terms of adrenal support. I mean, we have to change and rewire the way this woman lives life, how she thinks about herself, what are her beliefs about herself. If you were brought up thinking that the only way you are worthwhile is based on your productivity and how you show up for other people and how you self-sacrifice, that's a lot of undoing and untethering,
Yeah.
And if you're a mom and we're trying to untether that, that's really challenging, especially if you have young children. And so how do we shift? Let's say the data is clear. We can't ignore the data. Your heart rate variability is in the 20s. Okay, it's not in the 40s or the 50s. Your resting heart rate, is in the 70s. We see these. We see your body scores and doing great. We know you don't feel good, and yes, you go and do a more comprehensive, Dutch test, and we see your cortisol levels are flatlining, or we see you're wired in tire because you have a reverse curve. So how do we begin to shift that? I would always tell women it's about bookending your day with morning and evening rituals, because you're in the messy middle during the day. I'm probably not going to change the way that you're operating in that messy middle. But what if we could bookend earlier, like you get up 20 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier, and we just prioritize you. Before you get into your phone, like the second you're in your phone, everybody's got demands. You've got teachers text. My son's teacher texts us at 6:00 in the morning about whatever the thing is for the day. And,
you should write back, you should not be working at this time. You
right, and she's a mom of 4.
Yeah, you should
be in perimenopause.
Relaxing.
Yeah, she's amazing. But a mom of 4 in perimenopause, I am not surprised she's texting everybody at 6 a.m. in the morning. And she has my book. Okay. I don't know how far to take it, but if I look into my phone, there's always text messages, there's always emails, it's always somebody else's demands and needs. Now your life is not your own, it's somebody else's priorities. So before you get into the phone, before you get into the things that need to be done for the family, you just focus on you. You go outside, you ground, you just put your feet in the grass or just get your eyes in sunlight. You move a little bit, you take some deep breaths, you do whatever works for you. You have your own sacred coffee moment that is yours.
I love that.
And you pound that coffee before everyone gets downstairs. Like, do what you got to do, but have that ritual is yours, and the evening ritual is yours. Don't give your evening ritual away to Netflix. Don't give your evening ritual away to emails you didn't respond to or a dishwasher that didn't get unloaded. Take care of you. None of that's going anywhere. It's never going anywhere. The dishwasher is always going to need to be unloaded. The emails are always going to come. But you protecting you, that can only come, you protecting your peace and your safety, often that is a job only for you, right? So booking into your day, the messy middle can happen. But I will say that that messy middle can really spiral us in the middle of the day. So whether that is noticing those triggers or proactively sending safety signals to the brain. So taking, maybe it's 3 times in the day, you've got it scheduled where you take a 5-minute walk outside in nature. You do a little breathwork exercise for yourself. You go and downstairs and make yourself your own special tea or your own special iced matcha that takes 60 seconds with your Vitamix. Like, build that into the day, and then as you start to feel more resilient, keep building more and more of that in.
You know, one thing I love about what you've been saying is a lot of it is like habit. You need to make this a habit. You need to make self-care a habit. Are there things that have like really worked for you that are like non-negotiables for you personally?
Non-negotiable evening and morning rituals that are just mine, because I am a super mom. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not. I'm very involved, and also I'm doing all this too.
Yeah.
Like, this is also happening. Being on this beautiful show, or hosting a call with 150 women. That was right before this, and all the things that are going on, and then stepping into mom mode. There's what I get like 10 minutes between. That's the drive. Between work and and that's every woman, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that works for me the most, because I have a deregulated nervous system, I am constantly vigilant, I am every perimenopausal woman out there, I have trauma, and I go outside in nature. I get outside in nature 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I get what I can, but I make sure that I'm out there 3 to 5 times a day. I look far out, 10 feet out. I'm not in my phone. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm looking at the hummingbirds. I'm looking at the butterflies. I'm looking at the flowers. I'm just taking it all in nature. That being just the walking process of it all regulates my nervous system. So movement is my number one non-negotiable.
I absolutely love that. And thank you for sharing it. And that's the reason why I ask, because it's like, I think people hear, if you could do these things, I can do these things. It's like very inspiring because you are a really busy woman. And I think that when we're living in, all these things in our life that keep us busy, but then when we look at what's going on in the world, kind of no matter what your political beliefs are, anytime you engage with the news or social media, our stress level's going up. Like, no matter whatever you believe, this is not meant to be a political statement, but just the state of the media, it's meant to be inflammatory. Social media is meant to keep us engrossed in it and thinking about it and going back for more. And all of those things kind of add to that load. And so I love those things that like separate, pause, take the space, get outside, connect to what's real in your life, really, I think is a big piece of that.
Yeah, and at least once a week, I get together with a friend in real life.
Oh, I love that. It's so important. Like,
It's
get that oxytocin rolling, get laughing.
Yeah, and walking. We typically, I have my book besties. I've got just amazing friends, and luckily many are local as well. And movement. I would say, if there's any one message that as clinicians are bringing to our patients, or women who are listening are taking in, is that moving, physical activity with your friends, movement with your friends. Forget the champagne brunch. Go and move your body. Grab a little unsweetened matcha. I don't know if I can give it to drink an unsweetened matcha, but get an unsweetened matcha or a cappuccino or something, a tea, and go walk with your friends. Do a little walking date. I think that is the most nourishing thing, the best longevity hack I can bring to the table today.
I love that. I have to tell you, this last weekend we went with our family. We have 5 kids at home, 3 teenage boys and then a 6 and 8-year-old. We went to this like indoor play, kind of like you're in the middle of a game. It's like a video game, but you are the game. You are playing there. It's very active. You have to run around. We laughed so hard. And I think that was the best like connection. When you talk about movement and people, there's something magical to bringing those activities together. It like enhances bonding. When you laugh with people, you run around with people, you walk with matcha with people. Those are the good things in life for sure.
Yeah, we were right at the beach in Encinitas, and it was really low tide. Yeah, and Swami's is the big tide pool beach. So we went to Swami's, and it was right at sunset. It was when low tide happened, and we saw a little baby octopus. We saw we saw all this beautiful marine life, and it was so beautiful. And then we watched the sunset, and it was just, hundreds of families were out there as well. Like, it was the thing to do. And it was just so sweet because my son he's only 5, so he's in major exploration mode. It's so magical. And we watched that sunset over the horizon. It was just like, I'm like, this is what life is all about, like connection and family and friends. Like that's the time that matters most. And I get that that's not always a possibility, and in creating and curating these moments, and goodness knows the moms are the ones that are curating. This was my idea. I got everyone
Mhm.
there. I packed the snacks. I packed the water. I had the extra clothes in the car if we got too sandy and wet. Like that's how I was the one who made it happen. Let's be honest. It looked easy and simple, but there was a lot of undertaking to
Oh yeah.
make it. And I can imagine with five, I can't even imagine with five. Like
It's like
amazing.
one, but 5 times.
Five.
5 times that. No, but I think the thing is you can put your energy into you can choose to put your energy into whatever things are important to you. And I think what you're doing is you're encouraging women to put energy into the things that are then going to fill their cup again. And I think that's critical. Our energy is going to go somewhere. You might as well put it somewhere where there's fulfillment on the other side of it. And I think that's just an important takeaway, because you're right. You do have to pack the snacks. So you might as well like the snacks and like what you're going to do when you eat the snacks.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
enjoy the experience. Absolutely. And don't we deserve it? Like,
absolutely.
don't you deserve it? You deserve to feel good. You deserve for your body to work well for you. And if we need to take the approach of like, hey, when you feel good, everybody wins, because everybody does when you feel
Absolutely.
good. But I think we got to reframe. I think there's been this horrible, harmful narrative that this is just good enough. Like and it's not good enough. It's not good enough to get, ho-hum solutions. It's not good enough to just manage symptoms. It's not good enough to just be okay with a decline. Like
Mm-hmm.
where was any of this languaging around women we just suffer? We deserve so much more than that, especially when we're the ones that are making it all work. We are building up the families, we are building up the communities, we are like leveraging up in terms of leadership, we are changing the world. And because of that, because we are the change agents, because we are the ones that are holding the families together, because we are the ones that are indispensable, we deserve to have all the tools in the toolbox so that we show up the way that we want.
Well, this is that perimenopause revolution energy coming forward right now. I can totally get the vibe that you're bringing forward in the book and in your message, and I absolutely love it. My last question for you is, as we're seeing things change for women around perimenopause, the conversations, the healthcare, et cetera, what rises for you as what needs to most urgently still be addressed?
Ooh, that is such a great question. I mean, we need to move more in the direction of functional medicine and longevity. It's not about just symptom management for women. It's about expanding their health span. If women, what is it, the percentage of women, a quarter of our lives are spent in more debilitating health than men? That is not okay. We need to be thinking about not just mitigating hot flashes and night sweats or maybe some osteopenia, and mind you, bones need to be strong. We need to be thinking about how do we lift women up? How do we ensure they've got optimal energy? How do we ensure that they are stepping into the most powerful chapter of their lives? This isn't just about menopause and perimenopause medicine. This is longevity medicine. This is medicine that focuses on health span. That's the direction we need to go.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. I really appreciated our conversation today, Dr. Mariza. You are so easy to talk with, and I just really am grateful for the work that you're doing for women as they go through perimenopause, just advocating on the healthcare side, but also just on our own like personal paths. It's really clear you've had that experience yourself, and I'm really glad that you're putting that energy out there to support other women in being part of that revolution. It's great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for being with me today. If women want to learn more, or other clinicians want to learn more about your work, we'll put a link here to your book so people can get access to that. What are the other ways that you like for them to connect with you?
I mean, I think the book is one of the best resources out there. It's really centered on longevity medicine and how we can future-proof our health. There's so many bonuses, including morning and evening rituals, like all the things that we talked about today: blood sugar regulation, metabolically healthy meals, a circadian rhythm optimum. I have just self-care alone. I have a whole guide built for women, so that again, I believe that women deserve the best of things, not the least of things. And so I left no stone unturned when I wrote this book. I was like, there's no gatekeeping that's happening here. Women deserve all of it. I'm over women getting the what's the leftovers. You know,
Right.
we deserve I want the best piece of prime rib, okay? And so that's going to be the place to get it. The other place to find me is Energized with Dr. Mariza. That's my podcast. I focus specifically and only emphatically on women and women in perimenopause and menopause, and really about how we move the needle so that you are feeling more alive than ever before.
Wonderful. I encourage you guys to check that out. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday. You can follow us on socials at Dutch Test and visit us at DutchTest.com.
Thanks for joining us on the Dutch Podcast. Join us every Tuesday for new conversations with leading functional health experts. If you like what you've heard, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.